All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of Elevating with Marcia. I'm your host, Marcia Hawkins, and in today's episode, by popular demand, we're going to be talking about organization. That's right. Everybody reached out to me after my last podcast and requested that I put this to the top of the list. So here we are. So we're going to delve right into it. We're not going to waste any time because we have a lot to go over. Okay, one of the first things I wanted to tackle was I want to revisit the 3x5 index cards that I purchased from the dollar store. I mentioned it helps me organize my schedule every day. It helps me organize my time. And I really want to talk about just how important it is to have that cheat sheet, if you will, in order to be able to keep yourself organized on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. So as I mentioned in my last podcast, I utilize those cards in a manner that allows me to do a hot sheet. Those are the multiple things that I need to do, from renewing my insurance license to continuing ed credits, updating my wills, doctor appointments, dental appointments, just anything that is not like a normal scheduled thing that I would do, but it's also a really good reminder in terms of what I need to tackle. And I usually do the hot list usually about 3 to 6 months out, so I know it's on my radar. I'm looking at it right now, and one of the things I need to accomplish is by October I need to renew our passports. So that is at the top of my list, and I will get that done. In fact, I have till November, but I'm ruling myself to complete that by October 1st. I love being organized. In fact, my mom told me when I was a little girl, I used to walk around saying, we need to get organized. And I always have found that funny because that is me to a T. All right, I also like to do them weekly. So on the back of the card, I will put Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I will put each appointment task that I need to accomplish each and every day. And then at the end of the day, I come up to my office and I grab another 3x5 card, put the day of the week. So I would put whatever day it is going to be for the following day, and I would list the things from that other 3x5 card that I need to tackle. And I just do a complete schedule of what I need to get done. It really is super effective. I've been doing this for many, many years, and I would struggle to deviate from it because it has been so successful for me in terms of what I need to do. In addition to that, it just keeps you very focused. I know we all have calendars on our iPhones and our Samsung devices. However, I just find that when I'm on the phone with somebody and they're asking me if I'm available to meet with them or schedule a call or an appointment, I love being able to look over at my desk, or I usually have the day one with me. Just being able to look at it while I'm on the phone and say, yeah, you know what, Friday after 1 o'clock, I'm free. And just being able to keep myself that organized. There's nothing worse than making an appointment and then having to call the client or a friend back and say, you know what, that's not going to work for me. So I just like to keep myself super organized with my time. In fact, I talked about it in my first podcast, how, not having yourself organized is such not only a time waster, but to me, there's a financial cost to it as well. So I highly recommend that you pick up these 3x5 cards if you are not an organized person. If you are an organized person and you can do it digitally and you're good with that, that's completely fine. But for those of you, this is kind of your daily compass, your roadmap, if you will, to keeping yourself organized. And I find them to be extremely effective. So that's just one tip in terms of keeping your schedule running and keeping yourself on track. All right, another one I want to talk about is a couple of apps that you can download that I think would be very helpful. One of which is called Mint, and then there's Rocket Money that can help you organize your finances. I'm not quite sure. I'm on the fence about the two. I think they both have pretty decent features to them, but I really think you're splitting hairs. I think either one of them would work for you. in terms of keeping yourself organized financially. They're a great way to track your spending, your subscriptions that you have. I completely endorse you going through your phone and looking at some of the subscriptions that you may have maybe inadvertently signed up for a free trial and didn't realize that it whacked your credit card. A lot of people don't pay attention to their credit card statements. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. So having those apps on there, it actually alerts you when you've purchased it. Keeps track of your credit card spending, your monthly bills, your checking account. It keeps everything kind of organized. It's a great way to, at the end of the year, be able to track your spending. So really a great product. Rocket Money or Mint. I think they're two great choices in terms of organizing yourself financially. Not many people are that organized with their finances, so it's a great tool. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if you're thinking, no, I don't want to do that, it's probably because you're not good at it. And I think sometimes people actually fear looking at where their money's going. And I think that might be part of the problem and why people avoid downloading these apps and really being able to take a look honestly at where their money's going. So I think this is just a great tool for you, and I would take a look at those and maybe do a trial run on it, see how you like it. If you don't like it, it's not for you, and nothing ventured, nothing gained, but I do think you would like the features of it, and I think it would be a good thing to do. Okay, another recommendation I would make is utilizing a credit card over a debit card. I know you're thinking, oh, no, credit cards can get me into trouble. Well, so get a debit card. And I find that when you use a debit card, I hear common complaints all the time that they get compromised a lot. And I think that one thing you want to do is you want to check your phone and make sure that you're not automatically logging into free Wi-Fi. I've been with people who have gotten their credit cards and debit cards declined. They've walked into Whole Foods, had the free Wi-Fi kick in, or at Planet Fitness, or anywhere that offers free Wi-Fi. It automatically gives hackers access to everything on your phone. I do not recommend that you tap into free Wi-Fi, ever. It really, you might as well just hand over your credit card. And it really does cause a lot of problems, confusion, delays. With a debit card, however, though, if your card gets compromised, and they do authorize, I find the fraud alerts on a debit card are not as good as they are on a credit card, especially if you get benefits with that credit card. You would want to use that credit card exactly the way you use the debit card. You would want to take a check register, if you will, or maybe revert back to those 3x5 index cards and just log your purchases and then deduct that money out of your checkbook. At the end of the month, when the credit card bill comes in, just transfer that money over to pay the credit card off, and voila, you are not racking up credit card debt. You do need to be disciplined. Not going to try to buffalo you about that. You definitely need to be disciplined to do that. For me, I absolutely love my Chase card. I use the miles to travel. It really has so many benefits to it. In addition, when I rent a car, it gives me added protection on that, so I don't have to take the extra insurance. There's a lot of benefits with having that Chase card. So I use it for everything. I don't buy a stick of gum without using that Chase card. And at the end of the month, when the bill comes, the money's already been deducted mentally out of my checking account, and I just pay the card off every month. So it's really a good tool. And the fraud alerts are fantastic. With a debit card, I hear the common complaint. I never used a debit card. The common complaint that I get on a debit card is that when there is a charge on there that does not belong to you and you have to dispute it, the money does not get added back in until they figure it out. On a credit card, it does. The minute you dispute that, those charges are removed until it's proven otherwise, whether it was a valid charge or whether or not it was fraud. Highly recommend that you do that because it really will help you down the road in terms of being able to manage your money a little bit better. There's some people that use their debit card and for whatever reason, and I'm baffled by this, why people do not deduct those charges out of their checking account. I hear from a lot of clients that they have overdrawn their checking account because of their debit card transactions. They forget somebody else might be utilizing that card, maybe your spouse or your child, and they take money out and you didn't realize it. With a phone, a smartphone, and being able to access your bank account anytime, I'm a little surprised that this still happens, but here we are. I've heard many people say that debit cards have gotten them into trouble. So another benefit of having the credit card and utilizing that credit card is you do not have that same problem. So the disputing of the charges, the fraud, again, there's numerous benefits. And as long as you're willing to pay the card off every month, it should be fine. Again, much like the Rocket Money and the Mint, they do require some discipline sometimes. And if you're not good at that, maybe a debit card is the way to go for you. However, I think once you get in the habit of doing it that way and tracking your spending, also an added benefit at the end of the year, you can print your reports off your credit card and it will itemize everything that you spent for your taxes. So it's again, there's numerous benefits to doing it, but I think the most important one is the fact that if you have to dispute a charge, you are not on the hook for that until it is proven that it was fraud or you didn't use that, you didn't authorize that charge, or whatever the reason is that you're disputing it. Unlike a debit card, that money is not put back into your account until they determine otherwise. I've heard it can take up to 2 to 3 weeks. So that's something I'm interested in doing, but again, that's entirely up to you. So I really recommend the Mint app, the Rocket Money app. I also recommend using a credit card for all of your spending, and it's a great way to keep yourself on a budget as well. So if you say to yourself, I'm going to allocate X amount of dollars for my spending this month, you're going to know on your credit card statement by logging in, you're going to know exactly what you've spent for the month. And it really will, I think, in some ways, help you discipline yourself with your spending. So that's just a great way. The other thing I do is if there's an ability for me to pay a bill with my credit card, I also do that as well. Again, I'm trying to rack up points. There's multiple benefits to it. And again, I end up having an itemized receipt at the end of the year that will divulge everything that I've spent and in the proper categories. So it's a win-win all the way around. So something to think about. If you're not good with a credit card, maybe it's not for you. But personally, I think it's a great tool to not only track your spending, manage your record keeping. You get miles out of it. You might want to go with one that gives you cash back at the end of the year, but it does give you the ability to not have to worry about your debit card getting compromised and money being out of your account for an extended period of time. So that's just something I like to do. The other thing I want to talk about is we've talked about organizing your time. We've talked about organizing your finances. I kind of want to talk about organizing your home a little bit. And this one, I think whether it's your garage, your basement, your attic, maybe you have outbuildings, maybe you have a lot of closet space, a lot of storage spaces, if you will. For ha-has, walk around your house for a little while and take a look in your closets, in your drawers, in your garage, in your basement, and really try to take a mental inventory of how often you use this stuff. I had an uncle that once told me if you put it in the attic or the basement, you might as well throw it away. And I never really understood what he meant by that until my husband and I had bought the house that we're in now many years ago. And I remember cleaning out the barn. And I was thinking of him saying that. I could hear him in my head saying, if you put it in the attic or throw it in the basement, sometimes you're just better off throwing it away. And I'm cleaning this barn out, and I am just thinking to myself, holy cow, I could hear my Uncle Jack's voice in my head. And while I was cleaning the barn out, do I find his funeral card? To me, it was a sign of him saying, see, I told you so. And it was really kind of funny, but my husband and I were talking about how much stuff we ended up pitching. I give it away if I can. Not a big fan of tag sales, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I really find that Facebook Marketplace, you can upload stuff there. There's Poshmark, there's Mercari, there's several online selling sites. OfferUp is another great one. I've given away and sold many things on OfferUp, and it literally takes you just a second to take a picture, do a brief description, and upload it. And usually you can find a common ground meeting place to meet if you're not comfortable having people come to your house. But there is something so rewarding about lightening the load of all of the stuff that we carry. I had a good friend whose parents had passed away, and she had gone from putting stuff in her garage to her attic to her basement to a storage container, back to her garage, down into the basement, had a flood. Her basement stuff got all wet. She had to repack it. And I finally said to her, have you ever looked at the stuff and realized that that stuff is going to be here long after you're gone? It's been here long after your parents have passed, and you've repacked it about 10 times. You really got to look at things, and I look at things and I look at the value it holds to me. Like, is this going to offer value in my life if I hang on to this, whatever it is? And if the answer is no, I get rid of it. I try to go through, and I've mentioned it in my earlier podcast, I try to clean a drawer out every day. I try to clean a trunk out, or a closet, or a drawer, whatever. Really trying to goal myself to look at things and think, do I really need this? Am I using this? Because I think if we were honest with ourselves, we would realize a lot of the stuff that we acquire, we spend a lifetime acquiring it, and then we spend the final years of our life trying to get rid of it, or we leave it to our children to have to do that. So I think it's taking inventory of how we feel about things more than what the actual items are. And if you're not using it, give it away. I know a lot of people do collectibles. I am not that person. I've never wanted to put any value on something that A, is going to outlive me, and two, and I'm talking about things. I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about things. But it's so amazing how we just carry stuff from one house to another, one closet to the other, or storage container. And there's a reason storage containers have become so popular, because we have become, not only have we become physical hoarders, we've become mental hoarders as well. So really think about, just take a walk around your property or your apartment or whatever, and really take inventory to what you have. And if you're not using it, maybe somebody else could. Maybe it does hold value to somebody else. But I'm not going to be that person after I'm long gone that my children are like, Mom, really? You had to leave us with all this stuff? I will not be that person. Go through your closets, and if you haven't worn something in over a year, they say 6 months, but I say a year because the seasons change and you never know. But if you're not using it, oh my gosh, a lot of you, I'm in the resale business. That's just a hobby of mine. And I'm always surprised how many boxes and bags of things we'll get that still have their tags on them. And they finally, after it's sitting in their closet for 5 years, they decide to get rid of it. And it's just lighten the load. All of the recommendations I'm making in this podcast are all about lightening the load, refining your process on how you manage your receipts and your finances and your schedule and your time and where you're putting things. Have you ever looked at something? Have you ever, let's say you get a day where you're just going to clean closets or whatever. And we've all done it, which is great. But you've kind of pulled everything out and then you put everything back in. There's a sense of pride that you finished something, but at the end of the day, you probably didn't get rid of a lot. And there's something very cathartic about being able to purge all that stuff. It feels so good. A couple of times I've gone on Facebook and just said, hey, I'm not using this wallet anymore. Would anybody like it? First person that responds, I send it to them. And I know somebody else is going to take that pre-loved item and love it as much as I did, but I don't need it. And I don't need it to sit in my closet knowing I am never, ever going to use that again. So again, if you're going to take inventory of your time, your finances and your personal possessions and your space. It's very, very cathartic. It feels so good to purge things and organize not only your time and your finances, but organize your home. And clutter and having a lot of stuff sometimes is not only a time waster, but I think it can mentally kind of mess with our heads a little bit. I think when you look at a room that is so cluttered, yes, it can be overwhelming, but at times it can be very freeing when you take the time to get rid of that stuff. Quick story, I had a friend who will tell you she's not good at organization and organizing things. However, she hired a personal organizer, and she was telling me how she had gone into one closet and she had found birthday cards and Christmas cards and whatever. And I can't remember the amount, but I know it was several $100s that this organizer found when she went through everything. She opened up all the cards, and I want to say there was like $300 or $400 in there that she had forgotten about because she took the cards, threw them in the closet, and that was that. So imagine if you start going through things, the amount of things that you can find. I know for me, when I've gone through things, I have found things that I had forgotten about that really did mean something to me and something I would never get rid of. But at the same time, I have found many, many things that I was able to purge, and I do not miss them. So think about the stuff you're carrying through your life. If you're putting it in storage and you're paying there, you're hiking it up into the attic or taking it down into the basement or putting it in the garage or the barn, storage container, whatever it is. You're buying tubs to store more stuff, or you're buying big bags to put more stuff in. I think it begs the question, do I really need all this stuff? And I'm telling you, it feels fantastic to lighten your load. I have another saying. I always feel like if you buy quality, I have a kind of a funny story, but I love TJ Maxx and Marshalls better than anybody. However, I do find sometimes that we buy things there that we don't necessarily wear or need. I'm going to give you an example. Women are going to be able to relate to this, maybe some men. Have you gone into TJ Maxx and you've bought a purse for, let's say you've paid $50 for it, and you use it and whatever. And then a couple months later, you end up buying another one, and then you buy another one. Belts are another thing. People will go to TJ Maxx or whatever, and they'll buy a belt. Now, mind you, I love that place. However, I do find it's a lot of impulse buying there. I prefer that you, rather than buying 5 purses at TJ Maxx over the course of a year, maybe a year and a half, whatever, because my friends do this. They'll go down to TJ Maxx and they'll buy a new purse, and then they'll go back maybe a month later and find one they like better, and they'll buy that one. And at the end of the year, they've probably spent $400 on a purse. Maybe just invest in one that you're going to love for many years and get the use out of that. Belts are another one. Maybe just invest in maybe 1 or 2 really good belts that you're going to wear, rather than going down and buying 10 at $12.99 and you end up throwing them in the garage sale, you throw them at the consignment shop, or you throw them into the Salvation Army. Just go through your closet and take inventory of how much stuff that you've bought at those stores that you probably still have the tags on, you have not worn them, and you bought it on an impulse. So try to be a little more strategic about what you're purchasing as well, because I think if you really did an inventory on what you were actually buying and wearing, maybe just do a count. How many items in your closet still have tags on them? And maybe invest in the quality with the longevity of an item versus something that you think is cute and you think you're going to wear it. Maybe just put it back, or maybe keep the receipt in that bag. And if you haven't worn it in a week or 2 weeks, unless if it's in season and you haven't bought it for winter and it's summer, then maybe bring it back and maybe discipline yourself to do that, because that's where I get all that stuff, is because people buy it, they don't wear it, and then 2 years later I end up getting a bag full of stuff from these stores and they have not worn them, or maybe they've worn them once. I would prefer to invest in quality of something I truly want. Maybe there's like a designer shirt, and maybe a little bit more expensive, but it's something, it's classic, I know I'm going to wear it, and maybe invest in those items rather than going after the quantity of items. Maybe go after the quality of the item. And you'll find, I promise you, that you wear the quality over the quantity every single day. You can take that to the bank. So that's just another tip that I have. The other thing I want to talk about is maybe going through, again, your subscriptions on your phone. Take a look at if you're taking my advice and using the credit card or you're still using a debit card, try to log on quarterly and go through your spending for the past 3 to 4 months and take a look at the subscriptions that you have. Maybe you have a gym membership you're not using. Maybe you have a fitness app that you bought that you're really not using. Maybe you've got a number of things on there that you're no longer using. You can also maybe look at your cable and internet provider. Maybe you can maybe drop down to a cheaper plan. Maybe you're not using all the features of that plan. The other thing too is really try to maybe go through the mail that you get. I'm a big proponent of having your mail digitally emailed to you. I think it's a great way of keeping yourself more organized. And I know for a lot of people that are not tech savvy or maybe they're just older and they're just like, no, I need my bills mailed to me because if it's not in front of me, I don't do it. Revert back to that 3x5 business card and utilize that and be able to maybe just do a list of the dates that, again, you can put them on auto pay, which is even easier. But for some reason, some people have a real aversion to doing that. And I get it. Maybe your income is not consistent every month. Maybe you only get paid once a month and it scares you to know that's going to be taken out. Maybe you're not going to remember and you're using a debit card. And again, that goes back to overdrawing your account. You definitely don't want to do that. But you're going to have to pay the bill anyways. So I highly recommend you go on and get yourself set up for either auto pay. At the very least, have your invoices emailed to you. And then maybe on the 3x5 business card, list the bill that you need to pay, the date that it needs to be paid, and the amount, and whether or not you have set that up on auto pay. And that alone, again, if you visit it like I do every day on that hot sheet, then you're going to know. So it's really a very simple strategy, a very simple tool to keep yourself organized. So that's just another tip that you can have. And if you can, set it up for your credit card, have it paid on the credit card, and then you don't have to worry about whether or not the money's there. And then again, deduct that money out of your checking account and you can pay it at the end of the month. But again, it does require quite a bit of discipline. If you're not a disciplined person, maybe try to goal yourself to operate that way for about 3 to 4 months, and I guarantee you it will become a very good habit for you and keep yourself extremely organized. All right, everybody, I think that's it for now. If you have any other topics you'd like me to tackle, organization was one of the big ones that came back via email and text messaging, and I would be happy to do that. You can always contact me at Marcia at marciahawkinsagency.com. If you have an idea for a show or, again, a topic that you would like me to tackle, I'd be happy to do that. And if I don't have the answers, I will get a guest on that will be able to tackle it for you. All right, everybody, that wraps up another edition of Elevating with Marcia. I'm your host, Marcia Hawkins. Until then, make it a great week.